Lisa walked into her office building every morning at exactly 7:30. Her heels clicked against the marble floor in perfect rhythm. She wore the same type of black suit every day, carried the same leather briefcase, and nodded politely to the security guard without ever learning his name. At 34, she was the youngest department head at Peterson Corporate Solutions. People respected her, but they also feared her a little. She never raised her voice, never lost her temper, and never showed weakness in meetings. She spoke with quiet authority that made everyone listen. Her reports were flawless. Her presentations were sharp, and her decisions were always logical. But Lisa lived like she was always at work, even when she wasn't. Her apartment looked like a magazine photo. Everything had its place. Her books were arranged by color on white shelves. Her kitchen counters sparkled because she rarely cooked. She preferred eating the same salad from the deli downstairs, rather than making a mess in her perfect space. When her phone rang, she checked the caller ID before deciding whether to answer. Business calls got immediate attention. Personal calls could wait. Her younger sister Katie called almost every week, usually leaving cheerful voicemails that Lisa would answer with short text messages later. Lisa had built this life carefully over many years. She learned early that caring too much about people only led to disappointment. In college, her best friend had betrayed her trust over a guy. Her first serious relationship ended when he called her cold and unfeeling. Her father had promised to attend her graduation, but chose a business trip instead. So she stopped expecting much from people. She stopped hoping for more than professional courtesy. She built walls around her heart and called it being mature. Her daily routine was like a suit of armor. Wake up at 6, exercise for exactly 45 minutes. Shower, dress, work until 7. Come home, watch the news, sleep by 10:30. Weekends were for grocery shopping, cleaning, and catching up on industry reports. She never felt lonely because she never gave herself time to feel anything. At work, her team called her the Ice Queen behind her back, though never meanly. They knew she was fair and brilliant. She just wasn't warm. During office birthday parties, she would appear for exactly 15 minutes, say congratulations, and return to her desk. During lunch breaks, she ate alone while reviewing files. Her assistant Rebecca had tried for months to break through Lisa's professional shell. She would bring coffee and try to start conversations about weekend plans or new movies. Lisa would thank her politely and redirect the conversation back to work. Eventually, Rebecca stopped trying. Lisa told herself this was exactly how she wanted things. No drama, no messy emotions, no unexpected disappointments. She had learned to need no one, which meant no one could hurt her. But sometimes, late at night when the apartment was too quiet, she would catch herself staring out the window at couples walking on the street below. She would quickly close the curtains and remind herself that independence was better than vulnerability. Her sister Katie was getting married next month. The wedding invitation sat on Lisa's refrigerator, held by a simple magnet. Every time she saw it, she felt a strange tightness in her chest. Katie had called 3 times asking if Lisa would help with wedding preparations. Each time, Lisa had professional excuses ready. The truth was, weddings made her uncomfortable. All those people promising to love each other forever, believing they were different from everyone else who had made the same promises. Lisa had seen too many divorces, too many broken hearts, too many people who discovered that love wasn't enough. She preferred her predictable life, her controlled environment, her emotional armor that protected her from hope and disappointment equally. Lisa's colleagues often wondered if she ever relaxed, ever laughed, ever cried. The answer was no. Not anymore. She had trained herself out of those messy human responses. Years ago, when her father died 2 years ago, she took exactly 3 days off for the funeral and returned to work as composed as ever. When her mother called crying about feeling alone in their family home, Lisa suggested practical solutions like senior communities and housekeepers. She had become expert at caring from a safe distance, close enough to be helpful, far enough away to stay protected. But armor, no matter how strong, can become a prison and prisons. Even comfortable ones eventually feel confining. Lisa didn't know it yet, but her carefully constructed world was about to meet someone who would see through every wall she had built, someone who would challenge her belief that safety required solitude, someone who would show her that her greatest strength might actually be her greatest weakness. Change was coming, whether she wanted it or not, and sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't falling down, it's realizing you've been standing on shaky ground all along. Monday morning started like every other Monday in Lisa's perfectly ordered world. She arrived at 7:30, reviewed her schedule, and prepared for the weekly team meeting. But when she walked into the conference room, there was a stranger sitting at her table. He was maybe 35, with kind eyes and an easy smile that seemed genuine rather than practiced. He wore a simple blue shirt instead of the standard corporate uniform of dark suits. When he saw her, he stood up and extended his hand. "You must be Lisa. I'm Alex Chen, your new senior analyst. Looking forward to working with you." His handshake was firm but not aggressive. His voice was warm without being overly familiar. Lisa felt herself automatically switching into her professional mode. But something about Alex seemed different from her usual colleagues during the meeting. While others spoke in corporate language full of buzzwords and empty phrases, Alex asked direct questions that actually mattered. When discussing the quarterly budget, he didn't just accept the numbers. He wanted to understand the story behind them. "Why did client satisfaction drop in March?" he asked, looking directly at the charts. Lisa found herself giving a real answer instead of a diplomatic non-answer. "Because we prioritized speed over quality on the Johnson account." The client noticed. Alex nodded thoughtfully. "So we learned something valuable. Expensive lesson, but valuable. Most people would have moved on quickly, afraid to dwell on company mistakes." Alex seemed genuinely interested in understanding what went wrong and why. After the meeting, Lisa returned to her office to find Alex knocking on her open door. "Do you have a minute?" he asked. "I wanted to get your thoughts on the Morrison project." Lisa gestured to the chair across from her desk. For the next 20 minutes, they discussed strategy and approaches. Alex listened carefully to her ideas and built on them rather than competing with them. He asked thoughtful questions that made her think deeper about solutions she had considered obvious. "You know," he said as their conversation wound down, "this is refreshing. Most places I've worked, people are more interested in looking smart than actually solving problems." Lisa felt an unexpected warmth at the compliment, then immediately pushed it away. Professional respect was just that, professional. But Alex seemed immune to her usual walls. Over the following weeks, he would stop by her office with genuine questions about projects. He remembered details from their conversations and followed up on ideas they had discussed. When she worked late, he would bring coffee without being asked. "You don't have to do that," Lisa said one evening when he appeared with her usual order from the lobby cafe. "I was getting coffee anyway," Alex replied simply. "Besides, we're both here until 9. Might as well caffeinate properly." Lisa found herself looking forward to these small interactions. Alex had a way of making even routine work discussions feel more meaningful. He shared stories about his previous jobs, his weekend hiking adventures, his attempts at learning guitar. He asked about her work history, her thoughts on industry trends, her opinions on everything from office coffee to client management strategies. But he never pushed for personal information. When Lisa kept her answers focused on work topics, Alex respected those boundaries. He seemed content to know whatever version of herself she was willing to share. One Thursday afternoon, Lisa was struggling with a particularly difficult client presentation. She had been working on it for hours, but something felt missing. The data was perfect, the analysis was thorough, but it lacked something she couldn't identify. Alex knocked on her door around 6 p.m. "How's the Hartwell presentation coming?" "It's fine," Lisa said automatically. Though her frustration was obvious, Alex studied her for a moment. "Mind if I take a look?" Sometimes a fresh perspective helps. Lisa hesitated. She wasn't used to asking for help or admitting when she was stuck. But something about Alex's offer felt safe rather than threatening. She turned her laptop screen toward him. Alex studied the presentation carefully, scrolling through each slide. Finally, he looked up. "This is brilliant work," he said. "The analysis is spot on. The recommendations are solid. But you know what's missing." "What?" "Heart. You're giving them perfect logic, but you're not giving them a reason to care emotionally." "Why should they be excited about these changes?" Lisa stared at him. In 12 years of corporate work, no one had ever told her to add more emotion to a presentation. "I don't do emotional appeals," she said carefully. "I'm not talking about manipulation." Alex replied, "I'm talking about connection. These aren't just numbers on a screen. These changes will affect real people's daily work lives. Help them see." That over the next hour, Alex helped Lisa reshape her presentation. Not the data or the recommendations, but the way she told the story. Instead of leading with statistics, she began with the problems their employees faced every day. Instead of ending with projected savings, she concluded with how those savings could fund better resources for their teams. When they finished, Lisa looked at the revised presentation and felt something she rarely experienced at work: excitement about sharing her ideas. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I wouldn't have thought to approach it this way." Alex smiled. "You had all the right pieces. Sometimes we just need someone to help us see them differently." As he gathered his things to leave, Lisa found herself wanting to extend the conversation. "Alex, yeah, how do you make everything seem so easy? The connections with people, I mean." Alex paused at her door. "I don't think it's easy. I just think it's worth the effort. People are interesting when you give them a chance to be." After he left, Lisa sat in her office thinking about what he had said. For years, she had focused on being efficient, professional, untouchable. Alex seemed focused on being human. That night, she found herself wondering what it would feel like to approach work and life with this kind of openness. The thought was both appealing and terrifying. Something was shifting inside her carefully constructed world, and she wasn't sure if she should embrace it or run from it. The company retreat arrived in early October. Lisa had attended these events for 5 years, always treating them as extended work meetings with uncomfortable team-building activities. She packed her usual business attire and prepared to endure 2 days of corporate presentations and forced networking. But this year felt different because Alex was there. During the opening session, while Lisa sat in her usual spot at the back of the room, Alex saved a seat beside her. He didn't make a big show of it, just gestured to the empty chair when she arrived. "Better view from here," he whispered as their CEO began the quarterly overview. Lisa found herself relaxing slightly. Alex had a way of making even mandatory corporate events feel less oppressive. During the lunch break, instead of eating alone, while reviewing notes, she joined Alex and several other colleagues at a table by the windows. The conversation flowed easily. Alex asked thoughtful questions that got people talking about their actual experiences rather than reciting company talking points. Lisa surprised herself by contributing more than her usual polite comments. But the real change happened during the afternoon presentation. Lisa was scheduled to present the department's quarterly results, a presentation she had given dozens of times before, but this time, remembering Alex's advice about connecting with people rather than just sharing data, she tried a different approach. Instead of starting with charts and graphs, she began with a story about a client problem they had solved. She talked about the real impact their work had on people's lives. She saw colleagues leaning forward, actually engaged instead of politely listening. The presentation went better than any she had given before. Afterward, several people approached her with questions and comments. Her CEO pulled her aside to compliment her on the new approach. "That was powerful," he said. "You really brought those numbers to life." Lisa felt a warmth she rarely experienced at work. Genuine pride in connecting with people rather than just impressing them. That evening, there was a cocktail reception on the hotel's outdoor terrace. Lisa normally would have made a brief appearance and then retreated to her room. But when Alex suggested they get some fresh air away from the crowd, She found herself following him to a quiet corner of the terrace. The October air was cool and crisp. City lights twinkled below them. For a few minutes, they stood in comfortable silence. "You were incredible today," Alex said finally. "That presentation was the best I've seen from anyone in our company." Lisa felt her usual defenses. "Rising it was just work." "No, it wasn't. You let people see who you really are. That takes courage." Something in his voice made Lisa look at him directly. His expression was serious, almost vulnerable. "I don't know what you mean," she said quietly. "Lisa, I've been watching you for months. You're brilliant. You're dedicated. You care deeply about doing good work. But you hide all of that behind this professional wall. Today, you let the wall down a little. People saw the real you, and they loved it." Lisa's heart started beating faster. This conversation was moving into territory she had spent years avoiding. "It's not appropriate," she whispered. "We work together. This kind of personal conversation isn't professional." "Since when is recognizing someone's talents unprofessional?" Alex asked gently. But Lisa was already rebuilding her walls. "We should go back inside." "Wait," Alex said softly. "Lisa, look at me." Against her better judgment, she did. Caring about people isn't a weakness. Letting people know you isn't unprofessional. You've built this amazing fortress around yourself. But fortresses are designed to keep people out. Don't you ever get lonely in there? The question hit Lisa like a physical blow. She felt tears threatening, something that hadn't happened at work in years. I can't. She started, then stopped. The words she wanted to say felt too dangerous. "You can't what?" Alex prompted gently. "I can't let people get close," she admitted, the words barely audible. "It's not safe." "Safe from what?" Lisa looked out at the city lights, trying to find the courage to be honest. "Safe from disappointment. Safe from getting hurt. Safe from expecting too much and being let down." Alex was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft and understanding. "Lisa, I don't know what happened to make you feel like you had to protect yourself this way. But isolation isn't protection. It's just another kind of pain." She felt something cracking inside her chest, like ice beginning to thaw after a long winter. "What if I don't know how?" she whispered. "What if I've been behind these walls for so long that I don't remember how to be normal?" "There's no such thing as normal," Alex replied. "There's just honest, and honest is scary. But it's also the only way to really connect with people." Lisa turned to face him fully. In the dim terrace lighting, his expression was kind and patient. "I'm scared," she admitted, the words feeling foreign in her mouth. "Of what?" "Of caring about someone and having them leave. Of opening up and being rejected. Of being vulnerable and getting hurt." Alex nodded slowly. "Those are real risks, but you know what the alternative is? Living your whole life in a fortress. Watching other people have the connections you're too afraid to try for." Lisa felt tears finally spilling over. For the first time in years, she was crying in front of another person. "I don't know how to do this," she said, her voice shaking. "Do what?" "Trust someone. Let someone matter. Be real with another person." Alex stepped closer, not touching her but offering his presence. "You're doing it right now," he said simply. "This conversation, this honesty, this is what real connection looks like. It's messy and scary and uncomfortable, but it's also the most human thing in the world." Standing there on the terrace, with tears on her cheeks and her careful composure completely undone, Lisa realized that Alex was right. She had been so focused on protecting herself from pain that she had protected herself from everything else, too: joy, connection, love, hope. "I don't want to live in a fortress anymore," she whispered. "Then don't," Alex replied. "But you don't have to tear down all the walls at once. Maybe just start with a door." That night, Lisa lay in her hotel bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of their conversation. For the first time in years, she felt truly awake. Terrified, but awake. The armor she had worn for so long was finally beginning to feel like what it really was. Not protection, but a prison of her own making. The weeks following the retreat were unlike anything Lisa had experienced in years. It was as if someone had adjusted the color settings on her life. Everything seemed more vivid, more real, more complicated. She found herself actually participating in office conversations instead of just managing them. When her colleague Jennifer mentioned struggling with her teenage daughter, Lisa surprised herself by sharing a story about her own difficult adolescence. When the team celebrated a successful project completion, she stayed for the entire celebration, instead of making a quick appearance. But opening herself up to connection also meant opening herself up to everything she had spent years avoiding. Feelings she had buried began surfacing at unexpected moments. One Tuesday afternoon, while reviewing quarterly reports, Lisa suddenly found herself crying at her desk. The tears seemed to come from nowhere, but she realized they had been building for years. Grief over her father's death that she had never properly processed. Loneliness she had convinced herself was independence. Regret over relationships she had never allowed to develop. Alex found her there, tissues scattered across her desk, trying to compose herself. "Hey," he said softly, closing her office door behind him. "What's going on?" "I'm sorry," Lisa said automatically, reaching for more tissues. "This is unprofessional. I shouldn't be crying at work." "Lisa, stop," Alex said gently, sitting across from her. "Stop apologizing for being human." "But I don't do this," she protested. "I don't fall apart at work. I don't cry over nothing." "What makes you think you're crying over nothing?" Lisa looked at him through her tears. "My dad died 2 years ago, and I never really grieved. I just handled it, made arrangements, settled his affairs, supported my mom from a distance. I thought I was being strong." "Maybe you were being strong, but maybe you were also being afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid that if you let yourself feel the loss, it would be too much to bear." Lisa nodded, fresh tears spilling over. "What if it is too much?" "Then you feel it anyway," Alex said simply, "because the alternative is carrying it around forever, letting it turn into something heavier and more painful than grief ever could be." Over the following days, Alex seemed to understand that Lisa was going through something profound. He didn't try to fix her or rush her through the process. He just made himself available, bringing coffee during long afternoons, listening when she needed to talk, respecting her space when she needed to be alone. Lisa began calling her mother more often, actually engaging in conversations instead of just checking items off a duty list. She learned that her mom had been struggling with loneliness and depression since her husband's death, feelings she had tried to hide to avoid burdening her daughter. "I wish you had told me," Lisa said during one of their evening phone calls. "You always seemed so busy, so focused on your career," her mother replied. "I didn't want to add to your stress." Lisa realized how her emotional walls had affected not just her own life, but the lives of people who cared about her. Her determination to need no one had made her unavailable to people who needed her. She started making changes. She visited her mother for a weekend, not to solve problems or provide solutions, but just to spend time together. She called her sister Katie and offered to help with wedding preparations, really help, not just provide logistical support from a distance. At work, her relationships with colleagues began shifting too. People seemed more comfortable approaching her with both professional challenges and personal concerns. Her assistant Rebecca started bringing coffee again, and this time Lisa accepted it with genuine gratitude rather than polite acknowledgement. But the most significant change was her growing connection with Alex. Their conversations had evolved from professional discussions to genuine friendship. He shared stories about his family, his childhood, his dreams, and disappointments. Lisa found herself reciprocating, tentatively at first, then with increasing openness. One evening, working late on a particularly challenging project, Alex brought dinner from the Indian restaurant down the street. "You can't survive on vending machine snacks," he said, unpacking containers of food on the small table in her office. "You didn't have to do this," Lisa said, though she was touched by the gesture. "I wanted to," Alex replied simply. As they ate and worked, their conversation drifted from project details to more personal topics. Alex told her about his divorce 3 years earlier, how it had taught him the importance of emotional honesty. In relationships, I used to think that keeping feelings private was being mature, he said. But my ex-wife helped me understand that privacy and emotional unavailability are different things. Lisa set down her fork. What do you mean? I mean you can have personal boundaries while still being emotionally present. You can be private about some things while still letting people know you care about them. I had confused the two, and it cost me my marriage. Do you regret getting divorced? Alex considered the question carefully. I regret that we couldn't figure out how to communicate better. But I don't regret learning those lessons, even though they were painful. Now I know the difference between protecting my heart and hiding it. Lisa felt a familiar flutter of anxiety. What if someone isn't good at that, at being emotionally available? Then they practice. Alex said gently, like any skill, it gets easier with time. That night, Lisa sat in her apartment looking around at her perfectly organized space. For the first time, instead of feeling proud of her controlled environment, she felt sad about how empty it was of personal connections, meaningful memories, signs of a life fully lived. She thought about Alex's words about practicing emotional availability. Maybe vulnerability wasn't something you either possessed or lacked. Maybe it was something you could learn, slowly and carefully, with the right person. The thought was terrifying and hopeful in equal measure. Lisa was beginning to understand that letting her armor fall away wasn't about becoming weak or unprotected. It was about choosing what deserved protection and what deserved access. Some things, her heart, her hopes, her capacity for love, were worth the risk of getting hurt. For the first time in years, she felt ready to try. 3 months later, Lisa received the phone call that would test everything she had learned about vulnerability and connection. Lisa, congratulations. Her CEO's voice was warm through the phone. We're offering you the position of regional director for our West Coast operations. It's a significant promotion, bigger team, larger budget, substantial salary increase. Lisa felt her heart skip. This was the kind of opportunity she had worked toward for years. The position is based in Seattle. He continued, we need you to relocate within 8 weeks. I know it's a big change, but we believe you're ready for this level of responsibility. After the call ended, Lisa sat in her office staring out the window. 6 months ago, she would have accepted immediately. Career advancement had been her primary focus, her measure of success, her substitute for personal fulfillment. But now, the decision felt infinitely more complicated. There was Alex, of course. Over the past months, their friendship had deepened into something neither of them had explicitly named, but both clearly felt. He had become her closest confidant, the person she turned to for advice, the one who made even difficult days feel manageable. There was also her mother, who had been thriving since Lisa started visiting regularly. Their relationship had transformed from dutiful phone calls to genuine closeness. Lisa had become someone her mother relied on for emotional support, not just practical help. And there was her sister Katie, whose wedding was next month. For the first time in years, Lisa was deeply involved in family celebrations. She was Katie's maid of honor, a role she was actually excited about rather than viewing as an obligation. Most importantly, there was the version of herself she had been discovering, someone capable of deep connections, authentic relationships, and emotional presence. Would relocating mean returning to her old patterns of isolation and emotional distance? That evening, Lisa found herself in Alex's office. He was finishing up some reports, but looked up with a smile when she appeared in his doorway. Hey, how was your day? Lisa took a deep breath. I got a job offer. Alex's expression shifted to one of careful attention. Tell me about it. Lisa explained the position, the opportunity, the timeline. Alex listened without interrupting, his face giving nothing away. It sounds like an amazing opportunity, he said finally. You'd be incredible at that job. But, Lisa prompted, sensing there was more. No, but if this is what you want, I'm happy for you. Lisa studied his face. What if I don't know what I want? Alex leaned back in his chair. What does your gut tell you? My gut is confused, Lisa admitted. 6 months ago, I would have accepted without question. Career advancement was everything to me. But now I have reasons to stay that have nothing to do with work. They looked at each other across the desk, both understanding the weight of what she wasn't quite saying. Lisa, Alex said gently, you can't make a career decision based on one person, even if that person cares about you very much. Is that what you think I'm doing? I think you're trying to figure out what kind of life you want to build, and that's bigger than just career versus relationship. Lisa felt tears starting, not the panicked tears of months ago, but thoughtful ones that came with difficult realizations. I'm scared, she admitted, of taking the job or not taking it. Both. If I take it, I'm afraid I'll go back to being the person I was before, isolated, disconnected, hiding behind work. If I don't take it, I'm afraid I'm making decisions based on fear rather than growth. Alex was quiet for a long moment. What if we think about it differently? What if instead of choosing between career and connection, you figure out how to have both? What do you mean? I mean, what if the real question isn't whether to take this job, but whether you trust yourself to maintain the relationships that matter regardless of where you live? Lisa hadn't considered this perspective. You think I could stay connected to people from Seattle? I think the woman who's been learning to open her heart over the past few months is capable of staying open wherever she lives. Distance doesn't have to mean emotional distance. Over the following week, Lisa had honest conversations with everyone who mattered to her. Her mother encouraged her to pursue the opportunity, while promising to visit Seattle regularly. Katie was initially disappointed but ultimately supportive, especially when Lisa offered to help plan the wedding from wherever she was living. The conversation with Alex was the hardest. If you take the job, what happens to us? Lisa asked one evening, as they walked through the park near their office. What do you want to happen? Alex replied, I want to try. I want to see if what we have can survive distance and change, and all the complications that come with caring about someone. Alex stopped walking and turned to face her. Lisa, 3 months ago you told me you didn't know how to trust someone. Now you're talking about building a long-distance relationship. Do you realize how much you've changed? Lisa looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had seen through her armor, who had waited patiently while she learned to be vulnerable, who had shown her that connection was possible without loss of self. I've changed because you helped me see that protecting myself from pain was also protecting myself from joy. I don't want to live that way anymore. Even if it means risk, even if it means the possibility of getting hurt, especially then. Lisa said firmly, because the alternative is going back to that fortress. And I know now that the fortress was never protecting me. It was just keeping me from living. 2 weeks later, Lisa accepted the promotion. But she also made other decisions. To visit home once a month, to be present for important family events, to maintain the friendships she had built. And she made a decision about Alex, standing in the airport, preparing to board her flight to Seattle. She looked at him and said the words that would have terrified her 6 months earlier. I love you. I don't know how this long-distance thing will work, but I want to try, because some things are worth the risk. Alex smiled and pulled her close. I love you too. And you know what? I think we're going to figure it out. As the plane lifted off, Lisa looked down at the city where she had learned to be brave. The armor had fallen away completely, revealing not weakness, but a woman strong enough to choose love over safety, connection over control, hope over certainty. She was finally free to build a life that was as open as her heart had learned to be. What had once seemed improper, caring deeply, being vulnerable, letting people matter, had become the most natural thing in the world. Lisa had learned that true strength wasn't about protecting yourself from life, but about embracing it fully. Armor and all, the woman who whispered it's not proper had discovered that love, in all its forms, was the most proper thing of all.